首都医院, the capital hospital, which is the hospital that's closest to Tiananmen Square. And I went to see what was happening, and I saw that all the families were at the gates. The gates were locked. They wouldn't let anyone in. So I saw the families who were missing family members trying to get information. They had the pictures of their children or their, wives or their husbands. And then I was with a friend who worked for the United Nations, and she was a doctor. And she had contacts in the hospital, and she said, we're going to go in the back door. So we walked around the hospital, and we went in the back door. It wasn't locked. Nobody was watching. So we went inside, and we walked down the halls. It was empty, but there was a smell, and it smelled very sweet, like candy almost. And she said, you smell that? And I said, yeah. She said, that's the smell of death. That's the smell of decomposing bodies. She said they don't have enough room in the morgue to cool the bodies. There's a lot of bodies that aren't, they have nowhere to put them. And then she said, I'm going to bring you to a doctor I know. And we went into this office, and there was a male doctor. I think he was 40s. And we sat down and talked. And I asked him, when he had been called in. He'd been called in that night. He had treated all these people with wounds. He said he'd never had to treat battlefield wounds before, never in his career. And as he was talking to me, his face was neutral, no expression. His voice was flat, but his legs were shaking. He was, his legs were jiggling. Very, very nonstop like this. And he said he'd never seen so many deaths. I don't have numbers. A lot of reporters went to different hospitals, and we tried to piece it together, but we don't really know. We don't really know how many people died. And the estimates run from hundreds to several thousand. And I believe in the higher estimate. I mean, we tried. We went to crematoriums. We interviewed families, but very hard to piece together a total number. Everything was happening so quickly, and a lot of people assumed they were plainclothes police because there was quite a lot of repression. But as I thought about it in my mind, the plainclothes police don't drag you like that. This was like people just moving him out. They were just moving him out. Plainclothes police, when they want to take you somewhere, they're punching you in the kidneys. They're hurting you. They're really grabbing you with force. These were more like, if I wanted to save you and I didn't know you, but I'm not going to hurt you, I'm going to just take you by the shoulders or the arm and I say, come on, let's go. It was that kind of a movement. It wasn't the violence of a plainclothes police. And the other thing I want to say about that scene was, and it took me at least a year to figure this out, but there were two heroes that day. One was a tank man. The other hero was the driver of the lead tank, because he could have flattened him. He could have run right over. And that's why I was so upset. I thought he's going to get run over right before my eyes, but he didn't. The driver of the lead tank stopped. He didn't want any violence, and he waited. He was very patient, and he took a huge risk because, of course, the Chinese army knows exactly the soldier who was driving that. So I don't know what happened to the driver of the tank. Nobody knows. And we also don't know what happened to the tank man. So it's that moment in history where you have two heroes, but we don't know who they are. And then I went up to my room. They were like chaos in the lobby of the hotel. All the reporters were shouting, and some were calling their editors. Of course, no cell phone, so they were on the payphone in the lobby. And I saw a plainclothes policeman take those big Chinese scissors, really heavy scissors, and he cut the cord that the reporter, it was USA Today, a USA Today reporter. He was calling his editor, cut it. And so then I went upstairs to the balcony, and then I watched the massacre unfold. I don't think anyone ever counted because there were so many, but I would say 30, 40. And the reason I would say that is the next morning after the massacre, we were up all night watching this. But the next morning we went down to the hotel dining room, and it was full of journalists. And we needed to eat. I know it sounds ridiculous. It's now the June 4th morning. We're all shocked. All the journalists have gone down to the dining room to get breakfast, and there's no food. We needed to eat, and the waitress, the server was saying, nothing to eat. We're closed. No one's coming to work. Of course no one's coming to work. There was a massacre. And so we're all shouting. Reporters get a little excited. So some people were shouting, we need to eat, we need to eat. And then the cook came out. One of the chefs came out, and he said, I'm starting to cry because I remember this. He said, you must tell the world. You must tell the world what you have seen. He said, I will feed you. And so he started making us eggs. And the funny thing was, no one could eat. And all the journalists were crying in the hotel room. Even these big, burly cameramen who were so tough, they were crying. And we were just sitting there and no one could eat. And then we just went back upstairs and we continued reporting.